Hey guys, welcome to the help video for quiz 5.13. Okay, so there's some stuff that you need to recall to be successful in this quiz. First of all, the centroid is where the medians meet. Now, if we go back to our rap, it's people be crazy, a bit insane. The next line is me and 50 Cent. And then the last line is all too vain. So the me and 50 Cent tells us that the medians create the centroid. It's just a helpful way to remember it. All right, the centroid is the center of gravity. So just like this guy here, if you hold your pencil on the centroid, it should stand right there. And then we also have this centroid theorem that says the centroid of the triangle is located 2/3 of the distance from each vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. In other words, if we look at this median right here, the bigger part would be 2/3 the distance. Let me highlight that. This part would be 2/3 the distance. And then the smaller part would be 1/3 of the distance. All right, and then moving on, the other thing you have to recall is the orthocenter. It's where the altitudes meet. So the last part of our rap says all too vain. Altitudes create the orthocenter. All right. And then it just tells you down here, it's just a helpful reminder of where it's located. If it's an acute triangle, it's inside, obtuse is outside, and a right triangle is on. Okay, so to our quiz questions. The first one says, what are the coordinates of the centroid of a triangle with these vertices? Okay, so y'all know I love graphing, so I went ahead and put a piece of graph paper in here, and I'm going to start off by plotting my points. So let me go ahead and draw this triangle. And I'm trying to figure out the centroid. So I'm going to think back to my rap, people be crazy, a bit insane, me and 50 Cent. That tells me that the medians create the centroid. All right, I need to know that so that I can graph the medians. Now if we just go back and look at this down here, the median is the middle point of each side. So notice X is in the middle between those two sides. So we basically just need to find the middle point of each of the sides and then connect it to the opposite vertex. So I'm going to start off with this line segment from A to B. Remember the median formula says add your X values together and divide them by 2, and then add your Y values together and divide them by 2. Let me go ahead and write that up here. That's the median formula, or not median formula, that's the midpoint formula, and the midpoint will help you draw the median. So I'm going to go over here and label my X's and Y's, and then I'm going to throw them into my midpoint formula, -3 plus 1 divided by 2, and 1 plus 6 divided by 2. So let's see, this is -2 over 2, which is -1, and this is 7 over 2, which is 3.5. So if I plot a point at 1, 3.5, it should be the middle of that line. Okay, now some of you, and then to draw the median, I need to go ahead and connect that midpoint to the opposite vertex. So that is the median of the blue side. It cuts that blue side in half. Okay, now that's how you find it mathematically. You actually do the X plus X divided by 2 and the Y plus Y divided by 2. But I gotta be honest with you, sometimes I will just look at this line and I will just eyeball where I think the middle point is. And if eyeballing doesn't work, then I go back and I solve it mathematically. But typically for me, and hopefully for you as well, you can go through, I meant to change the color there. What did I just do? You can go through and just kind of, eyeball where you think that middle point should be. And then draw it from there to the opposite vertex. And if you draw all of those medians, then where they intersect is going to be your centroid. Wherever the medians intersect is your centroid. So this one looks like it's located at 1, 3. So again, here's the midpoint formula to find the exact midpoint, or you can look at it and try to eyeball it and just pick the midpoint. And if you end up intersecting your lines and they don't intersect at a pretty point, then you're going to want to go back and definitely do the midpoint formula for each side. Okay, let's check out the next one. This one says, well, first of all, we need to identify what we have going on here. And notice we're given the median of each side of the triangle. And anytime we have the medians, we think about our rap, people be crazy, a bit insane, me and 50 Cent. The medians create the centroid. So now I know I'm looking at this point here is the centroid, the center of gravity. And then let me label what they tell us. They tell us that GE is 27. What is the length of BE, the full line? So the way I like to think about these, this goes back to our centroid theorem that says that the triangle is located 2/3 of the distance from the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So remember, the longer side is 2/3. So basically, we're cutting this entire line right here into 3 pieces. We're cutting the longer segment into 2 pieces, and then this shorter segment is going to be a piece. So this piece is 1/3, this piece is 1/3, and this piece is 1/3. In other words, if we know this is 27, we know that this one's also 27 and this one's also 27. So I just add that up 3 times. Now there's a couple different ways you could have done that. You could have multiplied by the fraction. I'm just letting you know how I usually do it, is I usually just divide it into 3 equal pieces and then add them up to figure out what I want. So the total length here is 81 units. Okay, this is the same thing. We have median, so we know we've created the centroid. So we can use the centroid theorem. So this one says JO is 44. Now remember, the centroid theorem tells us that it cuts it's 2/3 the distance. So I like to cut the longer piece in half and let this one be 1/3, this one's 1/3, and this one's 1/3. So now I have it in 3 pieces. So I'm going to take that 44 and I'm just going to divide it by 2. So now I know each of my pieces have to be 22 units long. Again, this is not the only way to solve it. I think the OHS teaches a different method. This is just the way that I like to do it. So now I know that OP is 22 units. All right, again, we have some medians, so we know we're dealing with the centroid, so we can use that centroid theorem. It says RW, so the full length is 27 units. And now it wants to know the length of RX. So again, I'm going to take that longer piece RX, I'm going to divide it right there, and then I'm going to take this piece. So I split my line into 3 congruent segments. So I'm going to take that 27 and I'm going to divide it into 3 to figure out what each of those segments are. And 27 divided by 3 is 9. So now I know each of those pieces is 9. And since I want RX, I need to add 9 plus 9 together to get 18. All right, and then the last one says, what are the coordinates of the orthocenter? So you have to go back to your rap and figure out what creates the orthocenter. So remember, it's people be crazy, a bit insane, me and 50 Cent, all too vain. So I know that one's a bit of a stretch because we had to use the middle letter, but the altitudes create the orthocenter. All right, so I'm going to graph it just because I love graphing. 1, 2, 1, 6. Oops, that's not at 6. And then 5, 6. All right, so I get this right triangle. And over here you have to remember what an altitude is. An altitude is a line segment through the vertex that is perpendicular to the other side. So we need something to be perpendicular. So because it's a right triangle, we get really lucky. Because if we think about this side, the perpendicular line, since that's a vertical line, would be horizontal. So this line here is actually already our altitude. All right, and then if we think of our other side right here, the perpendicular line to a horizontal line would be a vertical line. So this line here is already our altitude. Now finding the altitude of this side would be a little bit harder, but you only need the intersection of two of them to figure out where the intersection point is. So we've already got it. Those two intersect right there. So the orthocenter is going to be located at 1, 6. All right, I hope this helps. Good luck on your quiz.